Welcome back to another episode of Can You Believe That? Today we're going to talk about cryptids, but not just cryptids in general, but cryptids in the ocean and in lakes. We've done an episode in the past of just cryptids in general. We're focusing on water cryptids this time, Tomy. And I am the Car Wizard. You guys see me on YouTube, and this is Thomas Durant. He's the paranormal UFO alien guru.
I would not call myself a guru at all. I just have a lot of free time to research this stuff, and I've been doing cases for over 20 years. But,
Yeah.
hey, I could be into weirder stuff. At least I'm not collecting stamps.
Yeah, I actually don't know anyone that's collected stamps. Do you?
I actually met a guy not too long ago who is a avid stamp collector, and he was trying to sell me on how amazing it is. I'm not going to pick it up. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not into the stamp thing, but if you are cool, whatever.
Yeah, everyone's got their thing, right? But, here we're into all things weird. And so today we get to talk about aquatic cryptids.
If you've ever been on a cruise ship and you kind of look overboard, it's pretty deep down there. What's below there? There can be things that science hasn't found yet, or science hasn't proven yet, but there's stories, lots of stories. They're going to start sharing some stories of different ideas of aquatic creatures that have been told to exist, but you really can't just go out and go see one whenever you want to.
No. And that's the thing. Like, these are things that people, a lot of folks will say, oh, it's just misidentified. In some cases, that may be true. But in other cases, there's enough sightings and enough sightings over periods of time to maybe lend some of these some credence. Now, I want to start us off with one that's probably pretty famous, especially if you live here in Washington State. We have a team called the Kraken. And well, that's exactly what we're going to start with, the Kraken. Now, this is a Scandinavian creature from mythology, and a lot of people see it depicted as a giant octopus. Now, you and I might think like, oh, mythology, it's not real, but people have really been seeing giant octopi or squid over centuries. Now,
Right.
that's the thing. Like, so many people have seen it, nobody believed it. Until 2005, a gentleman caught a giant squid on camera for the first time. And yes, giant squid are real. They are massive. And I can imagine that if you were sailing on a wooden boat and all of a sudden this giant tentacle wraps up around, you're going to think like, oh, the Kraken is here and it's coming to get me, because it is terrifying. Plus those giant eyes. Oh, squid have those giant eyes. They're so gross.
You're like this big.
Yeah, I don't need a basketball looking at me from the water thinking, this is tasty. Now, that's the thing. The people that go swimming with these giant squid, like, they get attacked. Like, they wear full chainmail outfits. But when those things are going full speed, they can break bones. Like, they are terrifyingly quick. They are terrifyingly powerful. And you are in their domain if you're in the water. So that is one cryptid that wasn't actually seen as a real animal until it was captured on film. Now, I'm not saying that all giant squid are Kraken, but maybe there is something in the myth. Maybe there was an extra large version of the large giant squid or giant octopus that was seen by people for, years, and that started the mythos.
Yeah, and the oceans in general, what I've understood, they go range from 10 to 15,000 feet deep, and they go much deeper, obviously, from there down to what the Marianas Trench is 30 something thousand feet deep.
Yeah, pretty big.
There are whales that go diving down to 5, 10,000 feet to feed on these giant squid. How do we know that there aren't more even deeper that are twice or three times larger than that? That's crazy, Tommy. That makes me not want to go swimming in the ocean now.
Yeah, it's enough to not want to go swimming. And on top of that, then you've got like stories of things like megalodons, which are, if you have a great white shark, well, this is a giant version of a great white shark. And there's enough accounts of people seeing whales with bites taken out of them or other giant creatures that have these massive chomps taken out that maybe these prehistoric megalodon still exist to this day. If it's as big as everyone says, whether it's a Kraken or a megalodon, I do not want to end up in the clutches of either of those two things.
No, definitely not. Well, I have a couple of stories. I'll start with one that are biblical sea creatures that are they would definitely be cryptids if anyone were to see one today. It would literally scare you really, really bad. So have you ever heard of the movie Leviathan, Tommy?
Absolutely.
That name comes from the Bible, and it's mentioned in multiple different verses in the Bible, not just in one certain book or one, mentioned two or three times in passing. It's mentioned a lot of times.
Whoa.
It's mentioned in the book of Job. It's mentioned in the book of Psalms, and it's some sort of multi-headed creature that it can come out of the ocean. It can destroy nations. It can kill people. It's some massive beast. It doesn't give great detail exactly what it looks like, but it acknowledges that something like this does exist. And I would be curious, what is this thing? Is it a plesiosaur? Is it something else that they're seeing? I don't know if a plesiosaur has 7 heads.
No, and that's the thing. Like, it sounds more like if you think of the old Iliad book, Scylla and Charybdis, I believe. One of them was like a hydra-like creature, and we do have the hydras in mythology that people talk about, which are these multi-headed snakes or dragons or serpents. So, wow, that's kind of crazy. I didn't know it was mentioned so many times in the Bible, which then leads me to think this is obviously something that people are referring to that was common knowledge. So, how likely was it that it existed? I'd say somebody saw something.
Yeah, it keeps being brought up all the time as if it's in a way like you should believe that this is real.
Wow.
So was it real or is it still real? I don't know if it still is, but apparently it was a creature, a real creature.
Wow. I mean, if we're going to put our debunking hats on, let's call it that, I'm trying to think of what I'd even try to say was a rational explanation for this. Like maybe people saw multiple basking sharks skimming the surface trying to eat. I mean, it's clearly stating that this thing had 7 heads and came out of the water. So I don't know of anything that it would even remotely come close to explaining what that is.
Yeah. And like I said, it doesn't give great detail exactly what it looks like. It just gives some rough ideas, but it seems to be apparently very large. Like I mentioned, multiple heads and known to kill people. So
Yeah. Not interested
yeah,
in seeing that.
it
I'm
makes me
good.
I definitely don't want to go swimming in the ocean now.
No, I mean, all of this, the entire episode is basically a, hey, just watch Jaws, don't go in the water episode because I not interested.
Isn't there a phobia for like deep water, unbelievably deep? It's called thalassophobia or something like that.
Yeah, I have that. Let's just say I have that because that's
Okay.
exactly how I feel. Dude, if I can't see what's underneath my feet, I'm out. Done. Can't do it.
I'm kind
Can't
of
do
the
it.
same way. I wouldn't be scared to swim in 10,000 feet of water. What I'd be afraid of is something pulling me down and I can't get back up and it just keep going deeper and deeper and it gets dark. That scares me.
Well, if you go back to the Kraken we were just talking about or the giant squid, that's exactly what they'll do. They'll like dart at you from out of your view. And if they can grapple onto you, they'll pull you right down and drown you.
Oof. Do you have any other story? I have one more after that. Let's hear another one from you, Tommy.
Well, I have, as I look at my notes, we're cheating on this episode. Sorry, guys. It's just how it's going to be. Um, there's a few. I'm going to talk about one that is kind of a lake monster, but it's not the lake monster you think. There's something called the Beast of Busco. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is there's like lots of mythology around giant turtles, but this is actually a giant snapping turtle found in Indiana that was supposedly living in a 7-acre lake on this gentleman's farm, Oscar Fulk. But in 1898, he claimed to have seen a massive, like gigantic snapping turtle on his property. Well, other people started hearing about it and going and looking. By 1949, there were viewing parties bothering this poor guy's farm looking
Wow.
for Busco, this giant snapping turtle. And tons of people saw it to the point where there was a whole month dedicated to trying to hunt Busco and eradicate this giant snapping turtle. Obviously, no one caught him. And who knows, maybe Busco still lives on to this day. But the reason I talk about this is that's a 7-acre lake, and there's plenty of lakes in this country vastly bigger. And
Yeah.
there are lots of stories of giant turtles and snapping turtles and turtles that have land masses on their back. So it's kind of a common theme, like these sort of amphibious creatures that just grow to immense size. And, growing up where I did in New Hampshire, like the biggest snapping turtle I saw, because we lived around a bunch of marshland, was about the size of a truck tire. It was massive. And that
Hmm.
thing snapped, like we gave a big stick to it, like kids doing stupid stuff in the rural areas in New Hampshire. So don't try this at home. But we were trying to give it sticks, and it would just snap the sticks in half. Like it, not even a problem for it. I can't
Wow.
imagine what a snapping turtle that's the size of a person basically would be able to do to a human body, let alone a stick. So terrifying.
That would be terrifying. You don't want to get your male appendage in front of that thing.
No, no, that's a heck of a circumcision.
Yeah, there'll be a loss of your manhood.
Yeah, well, it's I won't go there. That's terrible.
Wow.
I'm just gonna
Giant
stop
snapping
myself.
turtle.
I forget it's a PG channel sometimes, so PG or PG-13 probably. We're not. Well, it's actually PG-13 because in my next topic we're gonna talk about another piece of anatomy that's very similar to what you brought up. But first,
Okay,
what do you
wonderful.
have, sir? What do you have? What's your next biblical story for us?
This one's actually when things are brought about in Revelation, talks about the end of the world coming, the Antichrist and all these things happening. It mentions what I believe to be the baddest of the bad as far as cryptids, the big beast. It's called in the Bible the Great Beast.
Hmm.
A lot of people have talked about the Great Beast. They mention this thing. They talk about it's the way it looks, or it's in passing, but no one ever talks about the fact that it clearly says in the Bible it comes from the ocean.
Mm.
It's in Revelation chapter 13. It says, "Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. It says, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on these horns 10 crowns, and on all of these heads a blasphemous name." There you have it. It came from the sea. It says it was like a leopard, its feet were like of the bear, a mouth of a lion. It says Satan gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. So it describes a whole lot more there. But the thing that I'm getting at is whatever this is, if it comes to be true, it's going to come from the ocean. It's a creature coming from the sea.
Well, and who's to say that it's not actually Leviathan that you mentioned earlier, which then just means yet another account of this thing.
It could possibly be, but whatever this is, it has very much authority and power. I think it's going to do a lot of bad things. Man, can you imagine seeing something like that come up out of the ocean? It's not going to be 2 or 3 feet tall. It's going to be massive.
Yeah, not really interested in having that experience. On top of the fact that then it's a signifier for the end of the world, which also not excited for that experience. So, I would hope that we don't get to see it in our lifetime. But if any of you know of stories where you've seen a similar thing, put them in the comments below so we can read it because it's always interesting to see what people claim they've witnessed.
Yeah, and it would be really terrifying if this beast comes out of the sea and the first people that see it, it says, "Why are you here?" And it says, "I've come for Thomas Durant."
No, yeah, no, 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 no. I don't. I mean, I hope I haven't banished anything like that. I don't think
No,
so.
I'm just joking around. It wouldn't say
Oh my
that, but
god. Yeah, yeah. Don't come looking for me. I forget my name, forget my number, no home address. Good.
no. But it does say in the end of that chapter that this thing is powerful, that it actually begins to be worshipped. And
Jeez.
the people who are worshiping, and I'll read it to you here again. It says, "And they worship the beast, saying, 'Who is like the beast? Who is even able to make war with him?'" It must be severely powerful.
Yeah. I just can't imagine worshiping something with a bunch of blasphemous names on its multiple.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Ooh, wicked.
yeah, I feel like that's a clear indicator not on the good team.
Definitely not on the good team.
No, no. But yeah, I mean, I pray we never have to encounter that here. So here's to hoping. But plenty of other scary things in the lakes and oceans around the world.
So let's tone it down a little bit from the absolute
Yes.
devastation of the world, and let's talk about something more, I guess, comical. I think you have a comical story.
I got a comical story. So, in doing preparation and research for this episode, I had one of those moments where you're all excited because you're doing something you're really interested in. And then you find a nugget of truth that just ruins everything for you. And this is, in fact, that moment that I'm going to share with all of you. So growing up in the 80s and 90s, I was absolutely fascinated with the Loch Ness Monster. Reports going back to the 6th century. So that's a long time ago of some sort of creature,
Wow.
serpentine creature, residing in that stretch of water. Now, it didn't become famous until 1934 when a doctor from the UK was visiting and snapped a picture, and they called it the surgeon photo. And we're actually showing it here. The surgeon photo clearly shows some sort of thing in the water protruding out of the water. And it sort of sparked this idea of the plesiosaur theory. The plesiosaur being an extinct dinosaur type animal that was aquatic, had flippers and a long neck. And that was what people started believing was the Loch Ness Monster, which they lovingly called Nessie. Since then, Nessie has had over 1,100 reported sightings. So a lot of people claim that they've seen this creature in Loch Ness, and plenty of photographs, plenty of video. And in fact, in the 1970s and even more recently, there were full scientific expeditions launched to find Nessie. And one of the cameras left from the 1970 expedition was just found this year by a submarine called Bodie McBoatface.
Nice. Wonderful.
So Bodie McBoatface found one of the cameras. Again, no evidence, no Loch Ness Monster caught on film. But here's where my heart sank. Being a huge fan of Nessie from childhood, when I was researching for this episode, I came across a theory on what people were seeing. And unfortunately, I think it sticks or is sticky if you want to get
Oh,
my
no.
there. So it turns out when whales are mating, they sort of run trains on the females, and multiple males will hang out with their fangs out. And sometimes these things protrude out of the water, as you'll see in the pictures that we're adding here. And so Nessie, in all likeliness, is an unsolicited whale dick pic.
Oh, what? So you're telling me that Nessie all this time has just been like penis pics of whale penises in the
It's
water?
it seems like that, at least with the surgeon photo and a few other of
Oh,
the photos,
what?
it's dick pics from whales. It seems like that's exactly what's going on.
No
Uh,
way.
None of us asked for them. None of us wanted to see them, but it seems like that's likely. Now, it doesn't explain all the sightings, but there's enough there to think, yeah, quite possibly.
So what you're saying, Tommy, is this likely not a plesiosaur, but it could actually be a pleasurosaur.
Yeah, definitely a pleasurosaurus.
Great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, sticky situation, pun
Oh
intended.
man.
As much as that broke my heart, there's solace for me because there are plenty of other plesiosaur type creatures that are known to exist in this world. And a lot of them are seen in lakes. Lake Tahoe has one,
Hmm.
and Ogopogo has one. And of course, I talked about this trip on a previous episode, Lake Champlain, Vermont, or on the border of Vermont and New York. Lake Champlain has their own called Champ or Champy. I go Champ. I like Champ better. Champ has been cited for quite a number of years. It actually goes as far back as to the indigenous peoples of that area claiming that there was a giant serpent in the lake. And the first reported sighting from a European came from the actual individual who founded the province of Quebec, Canada. And
Hmm.
his name, Champlain, hence the name of the lake, he encountered this creature and talked about it. So we have stories going back that far of something existing in that lake. And again, most reports say it's like a plesiosaur. Now, why am I excited by this? Because how is it an unsolicited whale dick pic if whales don't swim in fresh water? Yes, that means it's likely not the whale penis theory. Something else is going on in Lake Champlain, and maybe it actually is a cryptid animal.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. Otherwise, like someone else is putting their dong out there and taking pictures, which I just don't need to see. But plesiosaurs, likely a common theme in a lot of these sort of ideas of like these sea creatures that are pseudo serpent, pseudo large, and who's to say? The water's vast, and if anyone was going to survive an apocalyptic event, it's probably going to be the ones in the water that survive in the water.
Yeah. Thinking of deep water that's scary, I think what makes it scarier for me is if I was in multiple hundreds or thousands of feet of water and it was murky, like a
Yeah.
lake. So not only are you in untold numbers of feet of water, But even if you go underwater to look, you can't see anything.
Well, even in the ocean, though, it's the visibility goes away because the light dissipates as it goes down. So
Yeah.
there's still untold things in the depths of the waters, and we just have no clue. Like, who knows what's down there? I don't know. But if you do any deep sea diving and you've seen some cool things, throw it in the comments. Let us know. But aside from getting flashed by whales, we do have cryptid. Well, we have a cryptid question from our audience, and then I think there's another question that we should probably tackle. You okay to hear those?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, the first question comes from Herbie Husker 1889. Herbie writes, "What do you guys think about other cryptids like Mothman, etc.?" Well, that's a nice short question. I like this one. I don't know how much you know about cryptids. Our first foray into the cryptids was kind of like your opening to it, Wizard, right?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it. I mean, in a biblical perspective, there is a lot of creatures talked about in the Bible, in heaven or in different places, that I would be led to believe there are definitely some cryptid or creatures out there that are unexplained, unseen. I would not be one of those that say I'm a non-believer, for
Hmm.
sure.
Okay. I'll speak to this then, I guess, if that's
Yeah.
okay. So, Herbie, Mothman is something I've been fascinated with for a long time. And it's funny because Mothman falls into multiple categories. It's not just necessarily a cryptid, though there are elements of that. If you believe the whole story from the accounts that were recorded as detailed in the Mothman prophecies, not the movie, but like, the research that led to that film being made and to that script being written, there's elements of like ultra dimensional or ultra terrestrial beings, which we'll talk about later on. There's references to, maybe some sort of extraterrestrial type phenomenon. There's obviously like the idea that Mothman was a harbinger or some sort of omen for the collapse of the Silver Bridge. I mean, we'll talk about Mothman. I think Mothman gets their entire own episode because there's obviously the sightings in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, but then there's sightings in Chicago and other places that, I think it deserves its own episode. But do I believe it's a cryptid? I don't know. I think the jury's still out, and I think that there's a possibility it's something more. But in terms of other cryptids, like, we talked about Sinkhole Sam, the giant snake that inhabits Kansas, which I think it's very possible there's, these giant creatures are a very likely thing that can happen as a real phenomenon in nature. I think you come across something like that, you're going to want to name it, just like the giant crocodile Gustav in Africa that was known for eating people all the time. It was massive and it would just take down people. And I think it had a pretty high kill count, maybe higher than Christine in the movie Christine. I don't know. We'll
Wow.
talk about that another episode. But yeah, so there's a lot of truth to some of these beings. I don't know if they're all necessarily true because, as we found out today, Loch Ness, whale dick. But some things might be real, and I'm always open to it. I just want to see what evidence has been gathered, whether it's anecdotal or physical, and kind of make determinations. But yeah, it just really depends on the creature. So thank you, Herbie, for asking that question. And now we're going to move on to the next one. Jesse Kane, 1646, asking us, have you ever heard of Bigfoot actually attacking anyone? And have we been to the Lovelock Caves where the giants lived? The Lovelock Caves were in the vicinity of where we were filming when I did say that I was down there for the Nevada giants and mining stuff for the paranormal show that I was working on. So yes, it's fascinating cave system, plenty of game for something to survive on out there. So yeah, I think it's very likely some sort of Bigfoot or giant creature could have or still does live in that region. Yeah, and it's just sort of like a nice remote place to stay away from people. So for that, there's my answer. I don't know. Have you been to the Lovelock Caves, Wizard?
I haven't. I don't know anything about the Lovelock Caves or anything with the giants or anything like that. But as far as the question is of a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot attacking someone, I've watched a lot of research shows or things of that nature, and there's tons and tons of accounts of people seeing one or hearing one.
Yeah.
But I don't know I've ever heard of any story where they physically attacked or broke their arms or injured someone. Have you heard any, Tommy?
Yes. So going back to a channel that I talked about before called Small Town Monsters, Seth Breedlove runs that whole operation. And he did a documentary talking about it where there was an actual attack from a Bigfoot, but it was after the hunters shot it or shot at it.
Oh, okay.
So, and then there's actually several accounts of hunters' dogs going after Bigfoot and then not coming back, likely getting killed and maimed. So, yeah, I think it could happen. You know, for all we know, the missing 411 is either alien abductions, people being eaten by wildlife, people being abducted or eaten by Bigfoot or other things. Like, we don't know where these people go when they go missing. So is it possible they're attacked by Sasquatch or Bigfoot or these other types of, you know, large hominids? Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's all speculation at this point. There's a very few stories, and usually there's some sort of antagonizing element that makes them attack the people. So, you know, I'd say just if you're out there in the woods, don't be a whale dick.
That's right.
You know, so that's all the questions we have for this week. I know next episode we're going to have more questions. If you have questions, now is a good time to put them in the comments below, and let us know what you think about this episode. Let us know your questions on this episode, but also we're going to be talking about demons and spooky story. We actually thought we were recording that episode at the same time as this episode, but the recording disappeared. So here we are. We're going to have to do it again at another time, but we will be bringing you an entire episode on demons, demonology, and demons across different belief systems. So stay tuned for that.
In this episode, you guys have learned about possibilities of giant octopus or things like that being in the water, giant squid that could pull you under. You also learned that there could be a cryptid coming from the ocean yet to be seen that's going to end the entire world. And he also learned that Nessie could be just a large penis.
Yeah, it's a really disappointing. That was like I had to tell my wife, I was so disappointed finding out that that's what it was. And it's, again, very likely the truth. And I'm one to admit, like, I have beliefs, I have views, but I'm always open to hearing other theories, other beliefs, other sides of things. And this is one that I'm like, you know what? There's just enough evidence there where sometimes it's just a dick.
The next time I'm in the hot tub, I'll be thinking of Nessie floating around, a whale, or sometimes, you know, swim around naked in a nice hot bath and floating.
I didn't really need to hear. I don't need the visual of you naked in the jacuzzi trying to reenact Nessie.
Look, it's Nessie.
What you and Mrs. Wizard do on your own time is what you guys do on your own time. But if you liked what you saw today, please share it with the people you know who will enjoy it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please keep commenting, because that allows us to get pushed up in this weird algorithm thing that everybody talks about in YouTube. But it also lets us know you enjoy what we're doing, and we love hearing it. And please add those questions, add your comments. We'll try to mention as much as we can on the channel and help you guys be involved in what we're doing.
And tell your friends and family about this. You have people that you say, oh, I know Uncle so-and-so or a cousin that's into this aliens and all this weird stuff. Maybe you're not much into it, but they are. Send them the link to this channel. They definitely will enjoy all the comments and things and topics we talk about. So again, thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. And here's to many more strange stories and topics and things that most people don't want to talk about, but we love to hear.
Absolutely. And instead of waving, I'm going to do a Nessie.